The planet had been dead for 3 million years. Its cities had crumbled to dust. Its oceans had dried into salt flats that stretched for thousands of miles. Its sky was the color of rust and old blood. But beneath the surface, something was waiting. Commander wiped the sweat from his forehead as he climbed down the ancient stone steps. The air inside the ruins was thick and heavy, carrying a strange smell that reminded him of burning metal and electricity. Behind him, the rest of the expedition team followed in careful silence. Their flashlights cut through the darkness like pale swords, revealing walls covered in symbols that no living being could read. Was 34 years old with dark brown hair and tired eyes that had seen too many strange worlds. He had joined the Galactic Exploration Corps straight out of the academy and had spent the last 12 years mapping dead planets and forgotten civilizations. He had walked through the ruins of 100 extinct species. He had learned to feel nothing when he looked at their bones and their broken dreams. But something about this place was different. Something about this place made his heart beat faster and his hands shake slightly. The planet was called Prime in the old star charts. They had discovered it 2,000 years ago and had immediately declared it forbidden. No one was allowed to land here. No one was allowed to study its ruins. They said it was sacred ground, a place where the architects had once walked. The architects were the mysterious beings who had created all life in the galaxy millions of years ago. They had vanished long before any current species had evolved, leaving behind only ruins and legends and fear. But humanity did not believe in forbidden places. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 2 centuries ago, and they had not yet learned to be afraid of old stories. When the joint expedition was proposed, the humans were the only ones who volunteered to lead it. Reached the bottom of the stairs and found himself in a vast underground chamber. The ceiling rose so high that his flashlight could not reach it. The floor was made of smooth black stone that reflected their lights like dark water, and at the far end of the chamber there was a door. It was not like any door had ever seen. It was made of crystal that seemed to glow from within, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. Strange patterns moved across its surface, forming and dissolving in endless waves. And in the center of the door was a symbol that recognized from 100 different ruins on 100 different worlds. It was the mark of the architects. The delegation leader was a tall creature named. He had 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected its flashlight in 1,000 tiny points of light. When he saw the door, he made a sound like breaking glass. In the language, it was a cry of horror. "We must leave this place immediately," said through his translator device. "This chamber bears the seal of the Makers. It is forbidden to all living beings. We have committed a terrible sin simply by looking upon it." Turned to look at him. "We came here to explore. We came here to learn. How can we leave now when we have found something so important?" "You do not understand," replied. "Your species is young. You have not learned the old truths. The architects left traps for those who would disturb their rest. Entire civilizations have been destroyed for touching what was not meant to be touched." Lieutenant Laura Mitchell stepped up beside. She was a small woman with red hair and green eyes that never seemed to blink. She had served with for 7 years and had saved his life more times than either of them could count. "With respect," she said too, "we did not travel 40 light years to turn back at the first locked door." The other alien delegates murmured their agreement with. A group of amphibious beings with smooth blue skin and large dark eyes were already backing toward the stairs. The tall and thin creatures who communicated through telepathy were projecting waves of fear and warning. Even the observers, a species known for their courage and curiosity, seemed ready to flee. Only the 3 humans stood their ground. Laura and Sergeant Danny, a big man with a shaved head and arms covered in tattoos from a dozen different worlds. Danny had his hand on his weapon, not because he expected to fight anyone, but because it made him feel better. He did not like this place. He did not like the way the shadows seemed to move when no one was looking. But he trusted, and if wanted to stay, then Danny would stay too. The decision was taken out of their hands a moment later. The ground beneath their feet began to shake. Dust fell from the ceiling in thick clouds. The crystal door cracked down the middle with a sound like thunder, and slowly, impossibly, it began to open. Light poured out from behind the door. It was golden and warm and somehow alive. It filled the chamber and drove back the darkness, and in that light saw something that stopped his breath in his throat. Floating in the center of a smaller chamber behind the door was a sphere. It was about the size of a basketball, made of metal that seemed to flow and shift like liquid mercury. It hung in the air without any visible support, surrounded by a column of soft blue light that rose from the floor and disappeared into the ceiling. The alien screamed, watched as collapsed to his knees, clutching his skull with all four hands. The fell to the ground and did not move. The made sounds that were not words, just pure psychic agony broadcast into the minds of everyone present. Even the staggered backward, their faces twisted in pain. But felt nothing. Laura felt nothing. Danny felt nothing. The three humans stood in the golden light, untouched and unharmed, while every other species in the chamber suffered. Took a step forward, then another. He did not know why he was moving. He did not remember deciding to walk, but something was calling to him, something old and patient and impossibly powerful. It had been waiting in this chamber for 3 million years, and now it was reaching out to him specifically. Laura grabbed his arm. "Wait, we do not know what that thing is." He looked at her, and she saw something in his eyes that she had never seen before. A kind of calm certainty that seemed to come from somewhere outside himself. "I know," he said quietly. "I have always known. I just did not realize it until now." He pulled free of her grip and walked toward the sphere. The golden light grew brighter with every step he took. The blue column began to pulse faster, matching the rhythm of his heartbeat. The sphere itself started to spin, slowly at first, then faster and faster until it became a blur of living metal. Reached out his hand, and everything changed. The moment's fingers touched the sphere, the universe exploded inside his mind. He was no longer standing in the ancient chamber on Prime. He was floating in darkness, surrounded by stars that burned with colors he had no names for. He could see galaxies spinning in the distance, billions of years compressed into single moments. He could feel the birth and death of suns like heartbeats against his skin. He was everywhere and nowhere at the same time, a single point of consciousness lost in the infinite. And then he saw them, the architects. They appeared before him as beings of pure light, tall and beautiful and terrible. Their forms shifted constantly, never settling into any fixed shape. They had no faces, but knew they were looking at him. They had no mouths, but he could hear their voices inside his mind, speaking in a language that was older than the stars themselves. "You have come," they said. "After so long you have finally come." Tried to speak, but he had no body here, no throat, no tongue. He could only think his words and hope they understood. "Who are you?" he asked. "What is this place?" The beings of light moved closer, and felt their presence like a warm wind against his soul. "We are what remains of those who came before," they answered. "We walked the young universe when the first stars were still being born. We planted the seeds of life on 1,000,000 worlds. We watched as those seeds grew into creatures that could think and dream and wonder. We were the gardeners of existence itself." Images flooded into his mind. He saw the architects traveling through space in ships made of crystallized thought. He saw them touching barren planets and leaving behind the building blocks of life. He saw them nurturing young species, guiding them toward intelligence, helping them reach for the stars. The humanity itself. All of them were children of the architects. "We created you," the voices continued. "All of you. Every thinking being in this galaxy carries a piece of our design, but we did not create you to worship us or to serve us. We created you to continue what we began. We created you to carry the light forward after we were gone." Gone, thought, what happened to you? The warmth around him turned cold. The beings of light dimmed and felt something like sorrow radiating from them. There are things in this universe that were not created, they said. Things that exist outside the natural order. Things that hunger for the light and seek to extinguish it forever. One such thing found us at the height of our power. We fought it for 1,000 years. We threw everything we had against it, and we lost. Saw visions of war. He saw the architects battling something that had no form, no substance, only endless darkness and endless hunger. He saw their beautiful ships torn apart. He saw their worlds consumed. He saw them die by the billions, their light fading like candles in a hurricane. We could not defeat it, the voices said. We could only drive it away, wound it, force it to retreat into the void between galaxies to heal. But we knew it would return. We knew that someday it would come back to finish what it started. So you hid, thought. You put yourselves in this sphere and waited. Yes, the object you touched is called the Nexus Core. It contains everything we were. Our knowledge, our technology, our memories, our very essence. We designed it to find a worthy heir, someone who could use our power to stand against the darkness when it returned. But why me? Why humans? We are the youngest species in the galaxy. We have only been traveling between stars for 200 years. The beings of light moved even closer and felt them examining him, looking into every corner of his mind and soul. That is precisely why we chose you. We tested every species we created over the millions of years we waited. They found us first, but their minds were too rigid, too bound by tradition and fear. They could not accept what we offered. They tried to destroy us because they could not understand us. They attempted to commune with us, but their telepathy worked against them. They could not separate their thoughts from ours, and they went mad. Humans are different. Your minds are chaotic and unpredictable. You have no natural telepathy, no psychic sensitivity, no connection to the deeper currents of the universe. To other species, this makes you seem primitive and limited, but to us, it makes you perfect. Did not understand. How can being limited make us perfect? Because you are adaptable, the architects replied. You can accept new ideas without being overwhelmed by them. You can hold contradictions in your minds without going insane. You can face the unknown without losing yourselves to it. Other species evolve to fit perfectly into their environments. Humans evolve to change their environments to fit them. That flexibility, that stubborn refusal to accept limits, that is what we needed. The golden light around began to intensify. He felt something flowing into him, filling the empty spaces in his mind he had never known existed. We are giving you everything, the voices said. Our knowledge of the universe and how it works, our technology that can reshape matter and bend space, our memories of all the ages we witnessed, and something more, something that cannot be described in words. What? Asked, feeling the power building inside him like a rising tide. Hope, the architects answered. We are giving you our hope. We are trusting you to carry it forward into the darkness that is coming. We are betting everything we were on the belief that you will not fail. The light became blinding, felt himself being remade from the inside out. His cells changed. His neurons rewired themselves. His very DNA was being rewritten according to patterns that had been designed millions of years ago. And then suddenly it was over. Opened his eyes and found himself back in the chamber on Prime, but everything was different now. He was floating 3 feet above the ground. Golden light streamed from his eyes and from his fingertips. The sphere was gone, dissolved into his body, merged with his consciousness. He could see the fear on Laura's face. He could see Danny reaching for his weapon, not knowing whether to point it at or at the aliens who were staring at him in terror. He could see, and the other pressing themselves against the walls, their compound eyes reflecting his golden glow. He could also see things that no one else could see. He could see the energy flowing through the walls of the chamber. He could see the atomic structure of the air molecules around him. He could see the thoughts flickering in the minds of everyone present, not as words, but as patterns of electrical activity that he could read as easily as a book. Laura's voice was shaking. "Can you hear me? Are you still in there?" He lowered himself slowly to the ground. The golden light faded from his eyes, though he could still feel it burning inside him, waiting to be called upon. "I am still here," he said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears, deeper and somehow more resonant. "I am still, but I am also something more now." He looked at his hands, turning them over slowly. They looked the same as they always had, but he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The architects had chosen him. They had given him their power and their burden. And somewhere out in the void between galaxies, something ancient and hungry was stirring, preparing to return and finish what it had started millions of years ago. Closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He had no idea how he was supposed to save the galaxy, but he knew one thing for certain. He was not going to let them down. The Galactic Council Chamber was the largest enclosed space ever built by living beings. It floated in orbit around a neutral star, a massive sphere of metal and glass that could hold representatives from over 1,000 different species. Its walls were lined with viewing platforms and speaking podiums, arranged in concentric circles that rose toward a domed ceiling, painted with the images of 100 different heavens. Today, every seat was filled. Every platform was crowded with diplomats and ambassadors and military leaders who had traveled across the galaxy to witness something unprecedented. A human had bonded with an architect artifact. A human had been chosen by the creators themselves. Stood in the center of the chamber, alone on a circular platform that was bathed in harsh white light. He wore his standard Exploration Corps uniform, but it felt wrong now, too small and too ordinary for what he had become. He could feel the eyes of thousands of beings upon him, some curious, some afraid, some filled with hatred that burned like acid. Laura and Danny stood on a platform nearby, surrounded by armed guards from 6 different species. They were not prisoners exactly, but they were not free either. The council had insisted on separating them from until the situation could be assessed. The high speaker of the council was an elder named. His body was thin and frail, wrapped in robes of deep purple, but his telepathic presence filled the chamber like a cold wind. When he spoke, his thoughts projected directly into the minds of everyone present. "We are gathered here to address a crisis that threatens the stability of our entire civilization," announced. "A human explorer has claimed to have merged with a sacred architect artifact. He claims to possess the knowledge and power of the makers themselves. This claim, if true, represents the greatest shift in galactic power since the Great Unification. If false, it represents the greatest act of blasphemy in recorded history." Murmurs and psychic whispers rippled through the crowd, remained silent, watching and waiting. He could feel the hostility radiating from the alien delegates. To them, he was either a threat or a fraud. Either way, he was something that needed to be dealt with. The ambassador was the first to speak. His name was, and he was older and larger than, his exoskeleton from decades of political battles. "This is an outrage," he declared. "The humans have desecrated the most sacred site in our history. They have violated every treaty we signed when we allowed them to join our community. The artifact belongs to all species equally. No single race has the right to claim its power." Shouts of agreement came from a dozen platforms. The delegation was calling for to be arrested. The military commanders were demanding that Earth be sanctioned. Even species that had historically been friendly to humanity were expressing concern and suspicion. Listened to all of it without reacting. He could feel the architect's presence inside him, calm and patient, waiting for him to act. They had seen this before. Every species they had created was territorial and afraid. Every species distrusted those who were different. It was the nature of intelligent life to fear what it could not control. Finally raised his hand for silence. "The accused will speak. Human, explain yourself." Stepped forward. When he spoke, His voice carried through the chamber without any amplification, resonating in ways that should have been impossible. "I did not choose this," he said. "I did not seek out the artifact or try to claim it for humanity. I simply touched it and it responded. The architects made that choice, not me." "A convenient claim," interrupted. "How do we know you did not manipulate the artifact somehow? Humans are known for their deception and their ambition." Turned to face him directly. "You were there, Ambassador. Your people have been guarding that site for 2,000 years. Did your sensors detect any manipulation? Did your priests sense any deception? Or did you simply watch as your entire delegation collapsed in pain while 3 humans stood untouched?" Had no answer. The evidence supported his claim, however much they wanted to deny it. "The architects tested every species in this galaxy," continued. "They reached out to your minds and found them wanting, not because you are inferior, but because you were not compatible with what they needed. Humans were compatible. We were what they were looking for. I do not know why, and I cannot change it." "Then you admit it," shouted a delegate. "You admit that you now possess power that no other species can match. How can we trust you? How can we allow you to walk free when you could destroy any of us with a thought?" Closed his eyes. He had hoped to avoid a demonstration, but he could see now that words alone would not be enough. These beings needed to understand what they were dealing with. "I could destroy you," he said quietly. "I could destroy this entire station and everyone on it. I can feel the atoms that make up your bodies. I can see the energy flowing through your nervous systems. I could stop your hearts or dissolve your bones or turn your blood to fire." The chamber erupted in panic. Guards raised their weapons. Delegates scrambled for the exits, but raised his hand and everything stopped. Not stopped as in paused, stopped as in frozen. Every being in the chamber found themselves unable to move, unable to speak, unable to even blink. Time itself had been suspended around them, held in place by his will. He walked among them slowly, looking into their frozen faces. He saw their fear and their hatred and their desperation. He understood it. He did not blame them for it. "I could do all of these things," he said, knowing they could still hear him even though they could not respond. "But I will not. The architects did not give me this power to conquer or to rule. They gave it to me because something terrible is coming, something that destroyed them at the height of their glory, something that will destroy all of us if we do not stand together." He released his hold on time and the chamber exploded back into motion. Guards fell over each other. Delegates gasped and clutched their chests. Staggered on his platform, his telepathic presence flickering with shock. Returned to the center of the chamber. The enemy is called the Endless Hunger. It exists in the void between galaxies, healing from the wounds the architects inflicted on it millions of years ago. When it finishes healing, it will come for us. It will consume every star, every planet, every living thing in its path, and it will not stop until there is nothing left. Silence fell over the chamber. Even had stopped shouting. "The architects gave me their knowledge so that I could prepare us for this war," continued. "They gave me their technology so that I could share it with everyone, not just humanity. They chose a human not because we are better than you, but because we were the only species that could accept their gift without being destroyed by it." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from 100 different worlds. "You can hate me if you want. You can fear me. You can try to destroy me, but none of that will stop what is coming. The only thing that can save us is unity. The only thing that can defeat the darkness is all of us working together, putting aside our differences and our fears." He paused, letting his words sink in. "The architects believed we could do it. They waited millions of years because they believed that one day the galaxy would be ready to face this challenge together. I am asking you to prove them right." The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, Laura began to clap. Danny joined her. And then, one by one, delegates from species across the galaxy added their voices and their appendages to the applause. It was not agreement, it was not trust, but it was a beginning. And sometimes, a beginning was all you needed. 2 years had passed since speech to the Galactic Council. 2 years of negotiations and arguments and slow, painful progress toward unity. Some species had joined the new coalition immediately, recognizing the truth in its warnings. Others had taken longer, requiring proof and reassurance before they would commit. A few still refused to participate at all, preferring to trust in their own strength rather than ally with beings they considered inferior. Stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Unity Station, watching a fleet of ships from 20 different species conduct joint training exercises. The station orbited Earth, a symbolic choice that had caused considerable controversy. Many aliens had objected to placing the Coalition headquarters in human space, but had insisted. If he was asking the galaxy to trust humanity, then humanity needed to show that it had nothing to hide. His sister walked up beside him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She was 3 years younger than, with the same dark hair but lighter eyes that always seemed to be looking at something no one else could see. She had been a quantum physicist before all this started, studying the theoretical foundations of faster-than-light travel. Now, she led the team that was trying to understand and replicate the architect technology that carried inside him. "You look tired," she said, handing him a cup. Smiled slightly. "I have been tired for 2 years. I am starting to get used to it." The council meeting did not go well. It went as well as could be expected. They are still demanding that I submit to their tests. They want me to give them the shield technology first because their worlds are closest to the galactic edge. They are suspicious of everyone and will not stop reading minds without permission. He sipped his coffee. The usual problems. Nodded. She had attended enough of these meetings to understand the challenges. Building a coalition was hard enough when all the members were from the same species. Trying to unite 1,000 different races, each with their own histories and grudges and fears, sometimes felt impossible. "There is some good news," she said. Sent a message from the Andromeda observation post. "The sensor network is fully operational. If anything moves in the void, we will know about it." Cole had been his roommate at the academy, back when they were both just young cadets dreaming of exploring the stars. Now he was a fleet admiral, commanding the forward observation fleet that watched the edge of the galaxy for signs of the coming threat. It was a dangerous assignment, far from any support, but had volunteered without hesitation. He understood what was at stake. "That is good," said. "We need every advantage we can get." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the ships maneuver. A cruiser was practicing formation flying with a human destroyer and a frigate. A year ago, those 3 species would never have worked together. Now they were learning to fight as one. "How much time do we have?" asked quietly. Closed his eyes, reaching into the knowledge the architects had given him. He could feel the endless hunger out there, somewhere in the darkness between galaxies. It was like a wound in the fabric of reality, a place where existence itself was being slowly consumed. The wound was healing, growing stronger with every passing year. "Not enough," he said. 5 years, maybe 6. It will reach full strength and begin moving toward our galaxy. And when it arrives, then we will find out if everything we have done was enough." The door behind them opened and Danny walked in. He had traded his old sergeant uniform for the new coalition standard, a gray jumpsuit with the symbols of all member species stitched on the shoulder. He looked uncomfortable in it, like a soldier forced to wear a costume. "We have a problem," Danny said. "They are threatening to withdraw from the coalition." Turned to face him. "What happened?" "There was attacked by raiders last night. 3 cities destroyed, thousands dead. They are blaming claiming that telepaths were used to disable their defense systems." "They would never do that," said. "They are pacifists." "Tell that to they are mobilizing their fleet. If we do not do something, they are going to start a war that will tear the coalition apart." Set down his coffee cup. This was not the first crisis he had dealt with since the coalition was formed. Species that had been enemies for centuries did not become friends overnight. Old hatreds ran deep, and there were plenty of people on every world who would rather fight their neighbors than prepare for a distant threat they had never seen. "Take me there," he said to Danny. "I need to speak with the leadership directly." The jump took 3 hours. Used the time to review everything he knew about They were a proud warrior culture, descended from predators who had conquered their entire planet before reaching for the stars. They valued strength and honor above all else. They did not trust easily, and once their trust was lost, it was nearly impossible to regain. When they arrived at the capital world, they found a fleet of warships orbiting the planet. Shuttle was scanned repeatedly and escorted by armed fighters to a military space station where the High Commander was waiting. Her name was. She was tall even by standards, with dark green scales and eyes that glowed like molten gold. She had personally killed more enemies in combat than any living member of her species. When she looked at, there was no respect in her gaze, only cold evaluation. "You come to our world in our hour of grief," she said. "Why should we listen to anything you have to say?" "Because I can show you the truth," replied. "I can show you who really attacked your cities." His eyes narrowed. "The deny involvement, they claim it was someone else, but our scanners detected telepathic signatures. There is no other explanation." "There is one other explanation," said. "What if someone wanted you to blame What if someone wanted the coalition to fail?" He stepped forward and raised his hand. Golden light spilled from his fingertips, forming images in the air between them. It was the sensor data from the attack, pulled directly from the defense network and enhanced by architect technology. "Watch carefully," he said. The images showed the moment the defenses failed. Could see the telepathic interference that had disabled her systems, but she could also see something else. A signal hidden beneath the telepathic noise. A signal that came not from but from somewhere outside the galaxy entirely. "The endless hunger cannot attack us directly yet," explained. "It is still too weak, but it can reach out. It can influence. It can whisper in the minds of those who are vulnerable and plant seeds of hatred and fear. It wanted this attack to happen. It wanted you to blame It wants us to destroy each other so that when it finally arrives, there will be nothing left to oppose it." Stared at the images for a long moment. Her claws clenched and unclenched as she processed what she was seeing. "You are saying the enemy is already here," she said slowly. "Not the enemy itself, just its shadow, its influence. It has been working against us since before the coalition was formed. Every argument, every disagreement, every moment of distrust. The darkness feeds on division. It grows stronger when we grow weaker." Turned to her officers. They had seen the evidence as well. They knew that was telling the truth. "Then we cannot give it what it wants," she said finally. "We will not withdraw from the coalition. We will stand with you, human. Not because we trust you, but because we have no choice." Nodded. It was not the ideal response, but it was enough. "That is all I ask," he said. "Fight beside us. The trust will come later." As he returned to his shuttle, allowed himself a moment of hope. The coalition was still fragile. The enemy was still growing stronger. But every crisis they survived made them a little more unified. Every challenge they overcame brought them closer together. Maybe they actually had a chance. The darkness came on a Tuesday. Remembered that detail clearly, even years later. It seemed absurd that something so vast and terrible would arrive on such an ordinary day. But the universe did not care about drama. The universe did not wait for a significant moment. The endless hunger simply appeared at the edge of the galaxy, and everything changed. The first warning came from his observation fleet. 17 ships, 3,000 crew members, watching the void for signs of the enemy. They saw it coming. They had just enough time to send a single transmission before the darkness swallowed them whole. Was on Unity Station when the message arrived. He felt die. He felt all 3,000 of them die. The Nexus core connected him to every member of the coalition, and for one terrible moment he experienced their final terror as if it were his own. Laura found him on his knees in the command center, golden tears streaming down his face. She said, kneeling beside him, "We need you. The fleet is assembling. The enemy is moving." He looked up at her. 7 years had passed since that day in the chamber on Prime. 7 years of preparation and training and building alliances that seemed impossibly fragile. Laura's red hair was streaked with gray now, and there were lines on her face that had not been there before. But her eyes were the same, still sharp, still unafraid. "Is gone," whispered. "They are all gone." "I know," Laura replied, "but the rest of us are still here, and we are counting on you." He took her hand and let her help him to his feet. There was no time for grief. There was no time for anything except the battle that was coming. The coalition fleet gathered above Earth. 10,000 ships from 70 different species, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, stood on the bridge of the command carrier Defiance, with Laura at his side and Danny commanding the marine forces that would be needed if the enemy made it to the ground. Was there too, leading the science team that would try to analyze the endless hunger and find any weaknesses they could exploit. She looked terrified, but she had refused to stay behind when her brother was going to war. The enemy appeared on their sensors 3 hours later. At first, it looked like a cloud of darkness moving through space, blocking out the stars behind it. But as it grew closer, they could see that it was more than that. It was wrong in a way that hurt to look at. It was a hole in existence, a place where reality itself was being consumed. "All ships, this is Commander," said over the fleet-wide channel. His voice was steady, though his heart was pounding. "You all know what we are facing. You all know the stakes. The beings who created us gave their lives to wound this thing and drive it back. Now it has returned, and we are the only ones standing between it and the annihilation of everything we love." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I will not lie to you. Many of us will not survive this day, but our sacrifice will mean something. Every moment we hold, every blow we strike, we are giving the light a chance to endure. We are proving that existence itself is worth fighting for." The fleet moved forward. The darkness moved to meet them. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded history. Ships from every species fought side by side, their different technologies and tactics blending into something new. Cruisers provided covering fire while frigates struck at the enemy's flanks. Telepaths coordinated movements across thousands of vessels, their minds linked together in a vast network of shared consciousness. Warriors led boarding parties into the heart of the darkness itself, fighting things that could not be described and dying by the thousands. And at the center of it all was. He stood on the bridge of the Defiance, but his consciousness was everywhere at once. He was on 100 different ships, seeing through 100 different eyes. He was guiding weapons and coordinating attacks and pouring his own energy into shields that were failing under the enemy's assault. The endless hunger was everything the legends had warned. It could not be killed. It could not be reasoned with. It simply consumed, absorbing energy and matter and even the thoughts of its enemies. Ships that flew too close vanished without a trace. Beings who looked too long into its depths went mad. But the coalition held. Hour after hour they held. Felt himself weakening. The power the architects had given him was vast, but it was not infinite. Every moment he spent connecting the fleet, every burst of energy he poured into their defenses drained him a little more. He could feel himself fatting, the golden light inside him dimming. His voice came through his consciousness like a distant bell. "I have been analyzing the enemy. It cannot be destroyed because it is not a physical thing. It is a concept, an idea, the opposite of existence itself." "Then how do we fight an idea?" asked. "With another idea. The architects did not give you power to defeat the hunger. They gave you power to inspire, to connect, to share. That is what the Nexus core really is, not a weapon but a template, a way of linking minds across species and space. Understood. In that moment, with the darkness closing in around them, he finally understood what the architects had intended all along. He reached out through the Nexus core, not to ships or systems but to minds. Every mind in the fleet, every consciousness that was part of the coalition. He touched them all, linked them all, and offered them something that no one had ever offered before. A piece of himself, a piece of the light. He felt their surprise and their fear. He felt their resistance and their doubt. But he also felt their hope, their determination, their stubborn refusal to give up even when everything seemed lost. One by one, they accepted his gift. One by one, they felt the spark of the architects kindle inside them. And then, together, they pushed back. The light that erupted from the coalition fleet was visible across the galaxy. It was not just energy or power. It was purpose, will, the collective belief of 1,000 species that existence was worth preserving. The endless hunger recoiled. For the first time in its eternal existence, it encountered something it could not consume. It could devour matter and energy, but it could not devour meaning. It could not devour hope. Felt the darkness begin to retreat, fleeing back toward the void between galaxies. He wanted to pursue it, to destroy it completely. But he was too weak. The effort of sharing the light had nearly killed him. He collapsed on the bridge of the Defiance, the golden glow fading from his eyes. Laura caught him before he hit the ground. "Did we win?" he whispered. "We won," she said, and he could hear tears in her voice. "You did it. You saved everyone." He smiled weakly. "Not just me, all of us together." The war was not over. The endless hunger would heal eventually. It would return someday, perhaps in 1,000 years, perhaps in 1,000,000. But the galaxy would be ready. The spark that had shared would spread from generation to generation, passed down through every species that had fought in the battle. Years later, a memorial was built on Prime where it had all begun. Attended the dedication, old now but still carrying the faint glow of the architects inside him. Laura stood beside him, and Danny's name was carved in the stone among the millions who had given their lives. The inscription read, "They reached out their hands and touched the unknown, and the unknown chose to believe in them." And beneath that, a single word that had become the rallying cry of the new galactic age. Hope.